House Committee on Natural Resources and Tourism will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Martin.
Here.
Representatives St. Germain. Here. Vanderwall.
Present.
Outman.
Here.
Hoadley.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Preston.
Here.
Bonack.
Here.
Fairbairn.
Here.
Wortz.
Here.
McFall.
Here.
Scott.
Present.
Weiss.
Here.
Arbit. Foreman.
Here.
Myers Phillips.
Here.
Wooden. Mr. Chair, you have 15 members present. You do have a quorum.
Representative Johnson makes a motion to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. The minutes are approved by unanimous consent. We'll now take up House Bill 4445, sponsored by Representative Wortz. We heard testimony on this last week. We do have an amendment issued or requested by Representative Weiss. Would the representative wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no question that hunting is an important pastime in Michigan, and that for many it represents not only part of their familial and communal history, but also their relationship to the land. Many hunters are thoughtful and dedicated conservationists who are proud of the time that they have spent in and understanding our state's beautiful and bountiful natural resources. Those are natural resources that we cannot protect, however, if we shirk our responsibility to fund the programs, organizations, and projects that support hunters, the DNR, and our communities. So to ensure that we can honor the promises our state has made to the projects and programs relying on us, I'd like to offer an amendment that would tie bar this legislation to the supplemental the Senate passed yesterday, which would restore the funding that was stripped last week. The funding provided for fisheries, habitat improvements, and body cameras would impact directly issues that are important to this committee. This funding would benefit nearly every district in Michigan and bring peace of mind and clarity to the many who have trusted the state and who are relying on and expecting those funds. Thank you, and I welcome your support. I move my amendment.
Representative Weiss makes a motion to adopt the amendment. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to adopt the amendment to House Bill 4445, Chair Martin.
Since we have a caucus rule to have a 24-hour notice and we just received this, I will pass.
St. Germain.
No.
Vanderwall.
No.
Outman.
No.
Hoadley.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Preston.
No.
Bonack.
No.
Fairbairn.
No.
Wortz.
Pass.
McFall.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Arbit. Foreman.
Yes.
Myers Phillips.
Yes.
Wooden. Mr. Chair, you have 5 yeas, 8 nays, 2 pass. The amendment is not adopted.
Representative Wortz makes a motion to report with recommendation House Bill 4445. The clerk will take the roll.
On the motion to report, Chair Martin.
Yes.
Representatives St. Germain.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yep.
Outman.
Yes.
Hoadley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Bonack.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Wartz.
Yes.
McFall.
Pass.
Scott.
Pass.
Weiss.
Pass.
Arbit. Foreman.
Pass.
Myers Phillips.
Pass.
Wooden. Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 5 pass. The motion prevails.
House Bill 4445 is reported with recommendation. We'll now take up a presentation from RIGERO Incorporated, based in Plymouth, Michigan, on their technology for nutrient management and recovery for lakes and ponds. With us today from RIGERO is Roy Coyle and Rich Baum. Welcome, and we're looking forward to your testimony.
Hello.
Hello, thank you very much for having us. We are a Michigan-based company in Plymouth, Michigan. We invented and patented this technology here in Michigan. All 3 partners are born and raised Michiganders, so we absolutely love this state. And what we came up with was an innovative idea on how to just manage nutrients. And we're going to do a brief presentation. We figured that the Committee on Natural Resource and Tourism would want to know what we're doing. We're getting a lot of traction right now, so we thought we'd share with you folks what we do. Basically, we're a 4-member, 4 of us own the company, and we are now in 32 states, approximately 700 units across the country. We have our first 2 installs at a glamping park in the middle of France, which was kind of interesting. Now we can say that we're international. Little company from Michigan, now international. We have patents in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Europe. And basically, we started the company in at the end of 2016, 2017. We spent the entire year bleeding money and doing empirical data studies, because in the environmental space, you have to make sure that your stuff works. So, and we took it to market halfway through 18, and we haven't looked back. And we're just starting to get some traction right now in some municipalities across the country, some really interesting, cool states and counties, and even DNR type projects. So we said, why don't we take this home and make sure that the folks at home know about us? So that's kind of what we're doing here.
Can I interrupt for 1 second on the previous slide? The color code
Sure.
for the states that you have shown there?
Yep.
What is the color code? You got blue and gray states there. What's?
So we're, the blue ones are ones that we have
We're
our systems
bipartisan.
in.
Sorry.
Oh, that's where we're going.
We're the red states. No,
We use blue, the color blue, a lot. It has nothing to do with anything. But yeah, those are all states that we currently have our systems in. Yes, the blue ones. We're working on the gray ones right now.
Yeah. So basically, the problem that people have with ponds, lakes, and watersheds is nutrient load. That's all we're doing, is we're managing nutrients. We came up with what we call the biohealth pod, which is a incubator for beneficial bacteria. So our system goes into a pond or a lake, and what we're doing is, and this is our patent, is that we host, grow, and distribute beneficial bacteria 24/7 in the body of water. So we take on the aquatic system of where we're at. Companies like us, pond and lake management companies, always struggle with nutrient management because, number one, it's very difficult to manage those nutrients with enzymes or microbes by applying. Because we're hosting, growing, and distributing under a slow release program, we actually manage those excess nutrients, which then outconsumes the food source that causes algal blooms, which causes all sorts of things that you don't want. We actually can reduce organic matter on the bottom of lakes and ponds by as much as 6 inches a year. So our beneficial bacteria consume and digest organics. They leave the natural rooted plants. It's really a healthy way to manage an aquatic system. So
yeah,
I'm gonna let Rich, he's kind of our scientific factor in the company, and so.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think when you think about this, why does this matter? Why are we here? You've got to understand just how bad the problem is of nutrient loading. Nutrient loading is what caused in Lake Erie the shutdown of water because there was a big harmful algal bloom back in 2014. But it affects our ponds and lakes everywhere. You go to a pond and you step into it, there's muck, or a lakefront, there's muck everywhere, there's weeds everywhere. So it impacts literally every pond and lake, the one in your HOA that turns green and it can smell bad. And the big problem is, how do we manage nutrients? How do we lower the phosphorus, the nitrogen? How do we make the muck go down? Those are all things that we're fighting against. And typical aquatic management, we spray with chemicals, make it look good, but what we're left with is a pond that continues to get worse, to the point where the chemical treatments become less and less effective. So we developed this as a way to use something natural, and the patent is what really makes us special and sets us apart, is because, as Roy was saying, we host, grow, and distribute beneficial bacteria right in the body of water. And that's what's so exciting about our technology, is that it makes us exponentially more powerful. But when we put the system in the water, we're actually becoming part of the aquatic system, so that when you grow microbes in the body of the water the way that we are, you actually become part of the aquatic system, and you're growing what's successful, because it's survival of the fittest in nature. And we're growing lots of these microbes in those bodies of water, and it's pretty cool. We've had a lot of success with it. This is what the system looks like. And in fact, I left it over here, but we brought a little bio cartridge. So you can see the blue unit there. That goes in the water. It's floating under the surface and above the bottom. You drop a bio cartridge into that blue unit, and it dissolves, slow dissolves into the unit, and then inside the unit there's a grow nest, and we grow billions of microbes that are distributed out into the pond or the lake, or even a part of the lake, even a lake front. And then we have our nanopods, which are also in the same area of water that we're treating, and microbes find these little eggs, and they start growing in this special nanomaterial. That same nanomaterial is inside the biohealth pod, the blue unit you can see in the picture. And these are there growing, and they're all growing microbes that are consuming and digesting nutrients. And that is the foundational, most important thing that you do when you're managing surface waters like ponds and lakes.
It's a systems approach. So I call, as a layperson, I call that large bubbler the hotel, and then these nanopods that go about every 20 to 25 feet around the perimeter or around the perimeter of someone's property or lakefront, the houses. So we host, grow, and distribute billions of microbes every day. They move around the water, find these nanopods. These are secondary host mechanisms. So natural bacteria, native bacteria that's already in the lakes and ponds start to grow and proliferate off of these as well. So it's really a true dynamic system approach when you look at what we're doing.
And you can see in the diagram here what it looks like in the water. So if you were to go to a pond where we have our system, all you would see is a little bit of bubbling at the surface, so that you still have that pristine, surface of water. And it floats. It's actually buoyant, so it's just floating above the bottom and below the surface. Same with the nanopods. They're buoyant, all natural. There's a stone, there's some netting, some cork, and then the microbes grow in here, and it's just under the water working 24/7. And we have tons of applications. We're in campgrounds, we're in HOAs, and we're starting to do some really exciting projects even on the state level. In Idaho, we're working with Idaho Fish and Game in a brooding pond, a hatchery, because they want to increase the amount of cutthroat trout, the Bonneville cutthroat trout. They're trying to improve the population, and they're looking at us as a solution to do that, to help them do that.
This is where we live down by Canton, Michigan. We're in Plymouth. We're kind of sister cities, if you will. And this was a golf course in Canton, Michigan that is owned by Canton, the township of Canton. And the neighbors were upset because that was a retention pond where all the runoff went into it, and it was nasty, smelly. The cool water feature that they bought on 20 years later is now a swampy mess. So we came in and within about a 3-year period, we recovered that pond, and then they went out to bid and they put us, now we do all the ponds in Canton, Michigan, or Canton Township. But the really neat thing about our system is it's a class 1 microorganism, 100% natural. We source it from a company out of Wisconsin, and we're approved. The bacteria blend is approved in all 50 states, and we follow Rule 97 here in the state of Michigan, and we're approved with Eagle as far as our blend is concerned. So it's really a natural approach to what people typically throw chemicals at, because that was until now their only solution, and it's not necessarily the smartest one. So we did some, we do ongoing testing with muck depth and seeing how much remediation of that organic matter we get rid of on the bottom. As Rich said, the problem is we throw chemicals at it, it works. I call it pond crack because it looks beautiful for 2 or 3 months, but what you're doing is killing everything on the top, goes down to the bottom, creates more biomass, which is fuel for more stuff to grow. So you've got to break that cycle.
Yeah, and that pond had been full of algae for years and years. And when the city of Canton approached us, Canton Township, thank you. They had a neighbor that was just, the squeaky wheel, and finally they found us and we put it in, and the algae went away. And we've been working with them now for 4 or 5 years, and they love it. And there's about 1.5 foot of muck gone, about a foot of muck gone already from that pond, probably 1.5 foot by now. That was there before, since we put our system in. We've been measuring muck there for several years. We do lakefronts too, as I mentioned, and you can see here that we lowered a lot of muck here. And actually, interestingly, this one is in Woodland Lake in Brighton, Michigan. So and this is one of our early installs, and we put the nanopods in a grid. Those yellow dots are these nanopods and the biohealth pods under the dock, and it just works quietly there. The homeowner was so thrilled because he said the muck was above my knee, and then now it's halfway between my knee and my ankle. We measured it. It wasn't that much, but we got rid of a lot of muck. But the lily pads actually thinned out. I don't have a picture of it, but they thinned out over a 2-3 year period, and they have very few lily pads anymore. We didn't tear any lily pads out. We didn't poison any lily pads.
You don't kill anything?
We just took the habitat away that lily pads liked. We took the muck and we made the muck go down. You could see the roots of the lily pads become exposed. The leaves at the surface didn't have the same amount of nutrients. There's more depth. It was it's just, we have lots of customers like this, and that's why we love what we do. We work with a lot of campgrounds, and this campground is not in Michigan. This one's in Wisconsin, and they called us when we were doing some work for the Milwaukee County.
Well, we're doing brown deer golf. We started in golf courses, and then we transitioned into lakes and ponds, and we have a plethora of different markets now that are approaching us. But they had 2 ponds. We were at Brown Deer, which is a county-owned golf course just outside of Milwaukee, and we put it in one of their irrigation ponds. When you clean up the water for a golf course and they're using it to water their fairways, I mean, it does amazing things for the health of the turf. And superintendents are very anal about their turf, and so when you reduce nutrients, you reduce pathogens. And pathogens, when you spray pathogens on the turf, you can cause root rot, all sorts of not good things for golf courses. So we were focusing on golf courses. This campground called us and said, "Hey, I'm kind of an environmentalist." He was much more than that. He did his own water quality testing and everything. He was very into it. And he goes, "I hear you clean up ponds and lakes naturally. Can you come check us out?" They had a 2-acre swim pond and a 16-acre fishing lake. And we put 2 in the swim pond and 2 in the fishing lake. And after 1 year of his diligent testing, we went out and put another 14 units in the following year into the lake to do the whole lake. So we then transitioned into campgrounds is now one of our bigger markets because the ROI is there, right? Campground owners can charge more for a site on a nice water feature opposed to a swamp that is mosquito ridden. So, and this is, I'm going to hand this to Rich because this is kind of cool. We actually did our France install this year, and we did this one this year. Rich has been working on this, and we're always trying to get more empirical data, especially from these guys with the DNR involved. They're digging this. They're excited, so they're going to do their own testing in Idaho. But
yeah, so the problem they had is these hatcheries, which are all over the state, and we have hatcheries too. But they have the Bonneville cutthroat trout, and the numbers have been declining. And Pacificor, who has a hydroelectric plant, you can see it in the bigger picture on the bottom there in the corner. They provide grant money to support Idaho Fish and Game, and in all the states they're in, they're providing a lot of money to help projects that will improve the environment and improve the fish population. So they've been struggling in recent years, and their numbers have been declining and going down. They're not getting as many 6 to 10 inch cutthroat trout in the hatcheries, and they have identified that nutrient load is a problem. Too many nutrients. We got to lower the nutrients in this brooding pond and other ponds too, but the first one we did was the one that's closest to you in the bottom. And we put 2 units in there. It was just there a month ago. By the way, it's beautiful out there. There's a lot of mountains. And these scientists at their Fish and Game, they kicked the tires on this for probably 6 months, reviewing the technology, the efficacy of the technology. Does it work? Will it do what we want it to do? And they put it in. So we're very excited about the project. And but I think it speaks to where our company is heading. We are a business in Michigan, and we've been growing grassroots for years. We didn't chase government work because we just need to get deals. We got to get deals. We got to grow our company. But now that we've been out there for 4 or 5 years, really in the marketplace, now some of the government entities are coming toward us. We just got awarded a grant yesterday in conjunction with, and we didn't get awarded, Escambia County in Pensacola, Florida, in the Panhandle there, got us as a innovative technology to solve harmful algal blooms. And why did we get this grant? It's because we lower nutrients. Nutrients drive things like harmful algal blooms, particularly dissolved reactive phosphorus. We consistently see algae go away with our technology. We see phosphorus levels, they go down. So we become this product, this technology that can really help with some serious environmental problems. We're going to continue to do business with golf courses and campgrounds and HOAs, but there's opportunities to do some really important work that will really improve our waterways and make them safer.
The real reason we didn't go after municipalities or government is because they take too long to make a decision and they don't pay real well. So, I mean, to be frank, but we found that when municipalities like, go to the next slide, the Milwaukee County, for instance, we were doing Brown Deer Golf Course, which is owned by them, and their environmental biologist, really sharp lady, she came out because she piqued her interest because she was kind of digging what we were doing, and she came out and said, we need to put this at our park. So we did our first two parks in Milwaukee in this spring of +25, and she's got 3 more that we're going to do in the following spring. And we put 5 units in each one of these ponds, and they've got 100+ ponds, and 52 of them have water features on them. So we found, though, that when government agencies or municipalities actually come to us and they kind of want what we have instead of us chasing them, they're one of our best customers. So we've kind of changed our view of counties and municipalities because they get it and they have testing ability that is far beyond our means. And so
Sorry about that.
that's all right. You can go one more.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Well, that's the end of our presentation. But
Yeah,
we have
all done.
we have a few other slides of before and afters. But
And we want to give time for questions.
Sure. We didn't
and
want to take up too much
If you
time.
guys have some questions, so we're here to-
this was a non-asking presentation. We just wanted you to be aware of it because we're fired up about Michigan.
Well, Michigan has the highest number of public golf courses, so obviously that's something that people are going to be looking at. We have enough water anyway. Enough might not be the right word, but we have plenty of water, and so we have parks and recs that have water features. To what depth and square acreage can you handle for a water?
What the interesting thing about our system is most aeration or fountains typically go in the center, right? You want to put that in the middle of a pond or like the deepest water because you create some destratification and you bring cold water up. We don't do that. Our aeration is more for our bioreactor. It actually provides, we have 3 diffusers, 2 that pull water in the bottom, run it up alongside the top, and then distribute our beneficial bacteria, and then a finer bubble diffuser in the middle that provides dissolved oxygen to the grow chamber. So we've kind of thought of everything, but to your question, we don't work from inside out, we work from outside in. So our system, if you look at this at Idaho Fish and Game, we're only in 3 to 4 feet of water. So we work from the shallows into the depth. And typically it's the shallows where you have the problems because in shallow water, the UV rays can ping the excess nutrients and boom, you get a bloom, you get bad stuff occurring. So we basically do surface area, and how we've kind of calculated is depending upon variables, our one system will handle up to about 1/2 acre. So that's kind of how we design it. One of those biohealth pod systems, 1/2 acre. So we had a 5-acre pond there at, a 5-acre.
No,
2.5.
this one here
Oh,
is
this
just,
one.
this one we loaded it up a little heavier. We did it more intense because of what they're trying to do. This is about 1/2 acre and we put 2 units, but very often in a 1/2 acre pond, we'll put 1 biohealth pod system in. But if you had a 2-acre, we would put 4 in. If you had, so we could scale up to where we're starting to do, whole lake projects where we have 20 or 30 acre lakes and we go around the edges and we put a unit every 200 feet or so based on the design and the calculations we come up with. So it's a very scalable system.
To your question,
We can do larger
Mr.
bodies
Chairman,
of water.
it's all scalable. So we can do a small pond, we can do a koi pond up to, we're doing a 1,600 acre lake in northern Wisconsin up at a headwaters in Hiles, Wisconsin. It's called Pine Lake, and 1,600 acres. Now you can't obviously do that all at once. So what they did, their committee, their environmental committee got together and said, instead of just throwing money at this, let's create a concept where we'll create phases, and instead of putting money and buying X number of units, we'll give the homeowner a portion of what it would cost them to put one in, so their cost of entry is significantly lower, and we can get more units and start to do the entire lake, because eventually it does have cause and effects. By working from outside in, a couple really cool concepts, and I'll just divert for a second, everything that we've sourced, manufactured, assembled, we wanted it to be from Michigan, because we decided that when we started the company. But we now, we get all of our product from Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and New York, and that's it. We make sure that everything we get is from here, not across the pond, and that's.
Yeah, are there any more questions?
Yeah, there's plenty of people want to ask questions, and I have several more, but I'm not going to ask them because I think some of the other representatives will have the same things. The last thing I wanted to ask was, these floating things and so forth, boating. At what depth do they float?
Well, in Michigan, on a bigger lake, we put them under the dock, and we mount them to a dock pole typically.
To avoid
Okay,
that.
so we keep them out of boat traffic.
Okay.
The nanopods, people say, well, what if we fish one of those in? And we tell them all the time, it's strictly catch and release.
But we also,
We will license it.
we can make them below the, we design them
can
so
make
they were
them low
out of the,
profile.
low profile,
Okay.
below the props, out of the boat traffic. So we're in a lot of lakes, but we always work it out so no one has a problem.
Representative Altman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I think you have a great product here. Water quality has been a particular interest of mine in recent years. I come from a part of the state where more and more farmers are tiling their fields, because of the soil type and other conditions, and obviously the fertilizers, pesticides, all that stuff is being, seeped down into those drain tiles that feed into county drains, our lakes and streams, and other water sources. And so I've had a particular concern with that in recent years. Some of my questions have already been answered by you guys, but I guess one quick question I had is, how long are these pods effective for?
What we tell people is we have two phases. We obviously have a recovery phase if it's a pond that's existing or a lake that's existing, because I would say when people ask me, boy, this sounds too good to be true, there's got to be a downside, right? Well, the downside is patience. It's Mother Nature. People say, well, if you're getting rid of 2 to 6 inches of organic matter at the bottom, the muck, well, how quickly will ours recover? And I'm like, if I could tell you that, I'd be a wealthy weatherman. I have no idea. I mean, we know that our system works. How well will it work in your particular pond or lake is a different factor. So we technically say you leave this in here until you recover it, and then you keep it from getting bad again. So it could be a length of time where it would take a dredging project to get bad again. Who knows? But the point is, when we put our system in, it starts to get better every single day, year, until you've recovered it to a balanced aquatic system again. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
They last for years. I mean,
yeah, we
every
have a
one we
lifetime
put
warranty
in,
on them. So
they just stay in the water, and you just add the consumables are you put a bio cartridge in every 8 weeks.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah, and then the nanopods, after about 4 or 5 years, you start to replace those because these break down. They're all natural. So it's an ongoing program as long as you want to run it, and they just run and run and run.
the layperson's concept with this and why we're exponentially more power than people saying, oh, I tried muck pellets and it didn't work real well, or enzymes. And I'm like, it's not that they didn't work. They work very well. The problem is you can't afford to put enough of them in to make any darn difference. What we're doing is we're taking $10 of our proprietary beneficial bacteria, class 1 microorganism, leaching a little bit out every day, say $10, and we're growing in a 24-hour period $1,000 worth. So you would have to throw $1,000 worth of muck pellets in your frontage to equate what we're simply doing over a process of time under a slow release program, so we're not shocking the system.
And then one more quick question I have, in sticking to inland lakes, would this be effective for like failing septic systems and other things like that, aside from like fertilizers and pesticides and things like that?
So that's a good question. So yeah, a lot of problems with these lake communities is they don't have sewer, right? You got septic systems. Well, where are they leaching when they start to go bad? Into the lake. This is actually, we didn't invent the concept of creating a bioreactor that you put into a wastewater system. That's been in wastewater for years. But we developed a way to do it in lakes and ponds. So the same type of technology they're using in wastewater, actually we created for lakes. So yes, it will help reduce what's leaching in. So it becomes a very effective tool for those types of scenarios, because those types of scenarios do lead to E. coli levels going up. And if we can lower the phosphorus and nitrogen load and lower that muck that's happening, it can be a very effective tool for that scenario.
Fecal matter is organic as well, so our beneficial bacteria consume and digest organics, and so it's all good.
It's not just pouring a box of Rid-X out in the pond.
No.
Vice Chair McFall.
Thank you, Chair. You sort of touched on this. The chair had asked you about like the size of capacity, and you had mentioned Lake Erie. Is that like something? Would that be done that you could do, or is it?
Put it up to a vote right now, and
I'm not sure I have that kind of. But I'm just wondering, like a lake that size, because obviously that's the one that everybody knows about, because that made it all over the news and everything. So
The interesting thing is, when we were doing our initial empirical data study, what we were told was we were doing, the lake that we started on was a lake down in Irish Hills, Lake Somerset, and we did 3 test areas, 3 controlled sites. We did the whole season of testing, water quality to muck removal, to all sorts of things. And what they told us was, they said, you guys don't understand what you have here. But when they told me that we got rid of X amount of inches of muck in a certain period, I'm like, who cares what we do? We get rid of muck. I can sell no muck. And they said, no. You understand that this lake is 6 lakes up from Lake Erie. So you have tributaries to other lakes, and eventually gets down to Lake Erie. If you can manage nutrients in this lake from a holistic approach, you're going to have a cause and effect on subsequent lakes down towards
Right.
Lake Erie. So you don't really attack the symptom, you attack the root cause, right? And that's what we're doing.
It is. I will say though, I mean, we have not done a project of that size. We could develop some huge system that would do a massive body of water. It's not where we're focused as a company. But just what Roy is saying is what's been feeding Lake Erie for decades is all the runoff and probably longer than that, but with all of the ag and all the nutrients that flow in off of ag, particularly the Maumee River is the biggest culprit, I guess. I'm not here to point fingers, but
Right.
But that all flows in. Now, once it gets there, now you have all this muck buildup for years in Lake Erie. It's a shallow lake. The sun gets in there, boom, you get this massive algal bloom. So, yeah, we are a solution that can be scaled up massively, but also going away to where where we're originating, where we're putting all of these nutrients in, is as important as treating the bigger body of water that's, the red tide in Florida.
Yeah.
Could we help the red tide? Yeah, if we went upstream and we fixed all of the, lowered all the nutrients flowing into the
Lake
Gulf,
Okeechobee.
we believe we could make a difference.
Absolutely.
So there's 2 parts of the story: is fixing the lake, but also making sure we don't keep feeding it more
Right.
nutrients. We could play a role in those things.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
That's great. Representative Wortz.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you guys for your presentation. I can't remember where I met you at, but I think it was in my previous position as the Conservation District Manager. And Lake Somerset's in my district, so
Yes, we
yeah,
did meet you.
Yeah. But just a couple questions. I think this is amazing, and the price point, you're right, on to do the little pods is cost prohibitive unless it's a very small lake that you're working in. So how much, obviously it probably depends on the size, but for example, the one you demonstrated earlier, showed in your presentation, that pond, about what would the cost factor be, or what's the cost of one of your units?
We can get our price point down to a 1-unit system is $5,000. If someone's got a half-acre pond in their backyard, the initial cost is $5,000, and then it's $650 for the maintenance or the supplies to run for a year. So the cost of entry is a little bit heavy, but the cost to maintain it is very typically similar to chemicals, which is a 4-letter word to us. But as we get bigger in scale, that price point comes down. Last week, we did 20 units at a campground in the Panhandle, 18 units at an HOA at Daytona, just north of Daytona Beach. And those price points we got down pretty low because you're doing 18 or 20 units. obviously the price point for Pine Lake, the 1,600 acre lake, we've got a very low price point, and they're contributing a portion of that cost up front. So it's very, very cost effective for these homeowners because, again, we're not a Band-Aid. Everything else people are trying are Band-Aids. Even dredging is just a long-term Band-Aid because in 10 to 15 years it's going to be just as bad as it was initially. So we're truly a root cause instead of a symptom attacker.
Well, that's my second question was, at what point, I guess, how much muck do you feel like you can treat versus it needs to be dredged?
Well, that's the one problem. Like, for instance, I don't know if we have, the golf course I grew up on in Ann Arbor, Barton Hills Country Club. I don't know if we have that, but.
We might be down here somewhere.
Oh, there we go. Son of a gun. This pond was, it's at the halfway house right there on, just after hole 9. And the superintendent, Colin Seberg, of 16 years there at Barton Hills, was a friend of mine. And he said, hey, do you think you could help this pond? It was an 8-foot deep retention/irrigation pond. They had 1.5 foot of volume left. So that was 6.5 feet of stuff down there. And he said, we've spent 3 years with the state of Michigan getting a dredging permit because Eagle was, you have to go through a lot of different things to get a dredging permit. And then at the very end, he submitted a sample to Eagle, and they said, oh, there's scant traces of arsenic. Now you have more permitting, and you got to take it to a toxic dump site. He goes, can you help? I said, yeah, but I know those snooty members. They're not going to be patient. I mean, dredging was the smart thing to do, so that's what I would have done. And he said, no, we got to use your system. So this was one of those anomalies. We got rid of a lot of inches. I don't even want to say how many in the first year. And I think it's because it was really, really bad. And I think our system works better the worse the environment is with nutrient load because we grow microbes to the food source and with all those nutrients.
Their muck was very rich in organics.
It was huge.
Some muck has more sediment.
We cleaned it up, and he said, you have to get in front of every superintendent in the country. And we said, yeah, they don't trust salespeople. He says, well, I got good news. So he's no longer the superintendent of Barton Hills. He's our director of golf. So.
But we can help with muck, and we don't say we're bio-dredging. What we say is we're an alternative. A lot of times dredging projects are so expensive they become not even an option for a lake association or even an HOA with a 2-acre pond. Because you could take a 2-acre pond and you could end up with a $50,000 to $80,000 dredging bill. And what we do is we just slowly start to get rid of the muck. Over time, we may not get rid of 2 feet of muck, but a lot of times over several years, we might see a foot of muck gone. But the point is we're managing nutrients, not just on the bottom, but in the whole water column. And now you have less algae, you have less aquatic weeds, not because we killed anything, but because we took away the excessive amount of nutrients and the environmental factors that cause all of this stuff to just wreak havoc on these lake communities and and all these golf course ponds, campground ponds. So we become a much more cost-effective
And
alternative.
we're non-invasive. Even with dredging, you're sucking out even the good stuff. You don't want to take the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, you want to keep the rooted, healthy plants there for aquatic life. All we're doing is getting rid of the organic stuff that starves a lake or pond from dissolved oxygen. It's really healthy for aquatic life. They thrive again.
Well, my last just statement is, there's been a lot made about farmers, but equally people who want pristine, nice grass like golf courses or people that live along the lake. There is as much being run off into lakes from that fertilizer as there is coming off of farm ground. So
100%.
I think we need to be fair in our assessment of this and that there's both parties that have contributed to this. I think it's unfortunate that we just can't dredge when we need to dredge and we have to go through so many loopholes in a bureaucratic process, but it's nice to see that you guys are on an alternative that's affordable. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Fairbairn.
Asked and answered.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair St. Germain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So up here in Lansing, I've been often called names like Muckraker, the Muck Lady. But true story, on Lake St. Clair, Macomb County, I sit on our newly formed Muck Task Force. So we talk a lot about this, and I've even done my own science experiment with muck. Went online to Amazon and bought an algicide and, did my own controlled experiment with algicide. So very interesting. A few questions. Do you have to get a permit too? Okay, no permit through.
We are compliant in all 50 states. Michigan is the only state that requires us under Rule 97 to submit where we put our system, which we do. We're very compliant because actually, ironically, Eagle and DNR are our friends. They actually like us, and they look at us as hey, this is a pretty darn natural, healthy alternative. So what we're doing in certain areas, because even the DNR and Eagle tend to use chemicals in certain areas, and they approve those. And so this is just, we're not a silver bullet. We're not a be-all, end-all thing. I mean, there are people that will still treat a pond for a little while, but what we tell them is make sure that the treatments happen, and then you recharge our system a week later, because those chemicals will kill everything, including our bacteria. So let it dissipate for 7 days, and then recharge our system if you have to.
Right.
But typically, people who come find us want to either stop using chemicals or at least phase them out, is what we've found, and that can be done.
Okay. Are you familiar with the algicide M. woli?
Well, all of it.
I know it's a little bit different than, say, a
Algicide
typical.
is a healthier aspect of a pesticide or an herbicide or those type of things, right? But they still kill invasives or nuisance plants. They kill it. I mean, they still kill the stuff, and it goes down to the bottom, creating more biomass.
It's a good question, though, because an algicide, just like, is an herbicide algicide, you need to get a permit from Eagle.
Oh, you do?
And, I was going to say something. It was a good
Well, not
experiment.
always.
It was a good experiment.
Whoops.
It was just a small pond. It was just a small pond. But interestingly, the way Eagle handles this is you just provide it, you get your blend approved, and then they provide you notify them where you're going to do it, and then they're just fine. There will be lakes that maybe DNR manages. For instance, if DNR ever wanted to try this, that they would actually have jurisdiction, I think, over what Eagle's permitting Rule 97 or above and beyond. I don't know the whole inner workings there, but we are very compliant with the rules, and they're very simple. There's no big process or weeks and weeks. You just provide notification, they approve the notification, and then we're good to go.
I went around poking the bear in Florida for about a week and a half because we were working with a large amusement park with a mouse with big ears, and we had to sign something that said we couldn't talk about them, but we were going to put a few in their ponds just before COVID hit, and they said, we're only going to do this if Florida says it's okay to do it. So I went around for a week and a half poking the bear. They sent me to 6 different agencies, started with groundwater, surface water, then I went to wetlands, to you name it. I went to every department, I think, in the state of Florida, and they said, Roy, what are you trying to, they got to know me. They said, what are you trying to do here? I said, we just need you to let them know that it's okay to use us. They go, well, we don't approve anything, and we don't do that. We just simply say what you can't, we don't give approvals. I said, well, they said, are you looking for us to create a permitting fee? I said, no, we don't want to pay for it. We just want to know it's okay. And so finally, the same guy I started with after a week and a half says to me, look, Roy, you're a class 1 microorganism. It's 100% natural. We don't have any place to put you. You're not, we don't have a permit that you fall under. I mean, you're not doing, he just was confused. I said, well, could you put that in an email? That confused statement there? And he did. And I sent that over to our customer. And the compliance officer looked at it, he goes, well, heck, this will work. Because it was like, there isn't an approval process for these guys because it's all natural.
Most states don't regulate class 1 microorganisms for application in surface waters because they don't harm anything. So they don't look at them as something they need to regulate.
Doesn't give the lawyers a job.
Well, they'll find
No
some
liability. Representative Weiss.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this testimony. One of my questions was already answered, but I did have another one. And then I am not a microbiologist. I don't understand how all this works, but I really appreciate the approach to having a natural solution. And obviously, if you're focusing in particularly on a lot of like golf courses and hatcheries and other more closed pond systems, that makes a lot of sense. If you were to try to do, though, a larger body of water, which it sounds like you are there any other concerns around perhaps overdoing it even? Like, how do you determine the balance per body of water? Do you take a specific approach to each individual project that you look at, or are you just looking to do it like basically like this many per feet per depth?
We usually do a surface area, but the concept with our system, we grow microbes every day, and those microbes go out and consume excess nutrients, right? So if there are not a lot of nutrients out there, it isn't like a zebra mussel. We're not going to eat everything. I mean, we basically create a balance in each aquatic system, which makes it so unique and very cool, because it stops producing the beneficial bacteria as the food source starts to diminish. And so when we say the first approach is, the first phase is a recovery approach, where we're aggressively managing those nutrients and reducing that muck. When we've gotten that organic stuff down to basically a low level, if any, and all we're doing is just managing suspended nutrients in the water column, then obviously we don't produce nearly as many microbes. So it kind of self-monitors itself, if that makes sense, but we do scale it based on surface area, not so much depth, not so much any of the other things, but the surface area is how we look at it.
And in a bigger body like a lake, let's say we had a 400-acre lake, we would take an approach of really lake frontage, because that's where the shallow water is, that's where the biological activity is, and if you can solve the nutrient issues in the edges, we're also going to have effect toward the middle. So the design for bigger bodies of water like that becomes a little different. But yeah, we don't overdo it. It's a natural, we become part of the natural system, so we're naturally regulating. It's kind of nice in that way.
We did find on a lakefront, which was kind of dynamic, is people struggle with a lakefront because if you use chemicals, it just leaches out all over the place, right? We actually happened on this, Rich did, when we started to design our nanopods in a grid pattern around someone's frontage. I know he hates when I say this, but it almost created an invisible dog fence concept for the microbes. So even though you like your neighbor, you don't want to clean up their frontage as well. So if you can actually carve your frontage out of a lakefront and make it the nicest, cleanest lakefront on the lake, all sorts of good things happen. Number one, your kids are swimming in the cleanest water. You're not walking 2 feet into 2 feet of muck to get to the jet skis. And most importantly, your property value goes up. So we really, once we pinged that, it was like, oh my gosh, we kind of fell onto a novel concept of being able to carve out somebody's frontage and being able to really make their frontage the best on the lake. And so now we just do frontages, and we can end up doing an entire body of water by doing enough frontages.
Thank you. Representative Bonack, I really hope you ask about frozen lakes.
All I wanted to know is, let's say somebody lived on a 100-acre lake, and you had a problem, you had 75-foot frontage, and you installed one of these, and have you done that, and has it turned out?
This one right here?
Okay.
This is a frontage on Woodland Lake.
Okay.
And they were having an amazing lily pad problem to where it was more than nuisance. It just took over their entire swim area, took over their boating area. And what we did is here's what we did at Woodland Lake. Before, 1 year and 3 years. Now, they're still going to get lily pads. You're still going to have aquatic system growth. That's fine. But it's the excess nutrients, and we keep harping on that cause nuisance weeds like this, and sometimes invasives like certain types of milfoil, to just explode and take over your frontage. Whereas what we're doing is out consuming the food source that causes it.
So you do market to individuals too?
100%.
Okay.
And we actually we started to go after whole lakes, and every single meeting we had like homeowners come up to us and say afterwards, man, we love this lake, we love this committee, we love the HOA, but they can't make a decision to get out of their way. Can you fix my frontage? And we're like, we ought to come up with something. After about the 5th time of meeting with entire lake boards, individuals were coming up saying, we like this, we want to do this in our frontage. That's when Rich designed the nanopods to create grid patterns around a specific frontage. So we can take a campground that's on a much bigger body of water but has 1,000 foot of frontage for their for their swim area and their boat docks, and we can just do that frontage.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really like this presentation. You mentioned you'd be a really rich weatherman if you could predict outcomes.
There's no such thing, right, Carl?
Yeah. But could you give us some idea of what weather or environmental factors would be optimal for a faster, better result?
Excellent question. And what we've found is, we tell people a standard program is recharging the units every 8 weeks. What we found is if you recharge them every 4 weeks, doesn't work necessarily better, but it will work a little faster. And that patience thing comes into play there. So typically, yes, we do have ways to maybe accelerate how long it takes to recover. And in Michigan and the Midwest, you only change it when the water temperature is above 40 degrees. So typically in Michigan, we put in a cartridge in about March, and then we put the last cartridge in October, September, something like that. So that we ping that 6 to 7 month period where the water temp is above 40 degrees. In Florida, they go year round. I mean, and we're starting to do just a ton of business in Florida, Texas, Washington State even. So we're in some of those areas where we have year round, and obviously year round is going to work a little faster than Michigan, which is a 6 to 8 month, even though we did most of our empirical data studies in Michigan, Wisconsin, now Idaho, and some of the other states are doing their own.
That's great. I think we asked a bunch. It is very informative. I'm glad there is simple solutions that just take some innovation and works. Oh, we do have Representative Vanderwall squeaks in under the wire.
In the last minute. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just really a quick question. And I see it's mostly contained to lakes that are enclosed, but in some of the situations, like in my local town when I was on a lake improvement board, it was actually a river that opened up into a lake, and then of course it drained out into Lake Michigan. I'm assuming it still works, but at a slower rate, or?
Actually, it works on rivers as well as lakes.
All right.
Because of those that systems approach.
Okay.
That process that we've come up with. We do on the river up in Washington State, right?
Well, so yeah, that's a good example. That one was the Yakima River, which is a pretty good flowing river in Washington State. There's a campground there. Now, they have a pond that the river could, they have an offshoot, and they have a pond where their campers go and they kayak and paddleboard, and it was getting algae. In fact, we have a testimonial from the campground owner on our website. So there is a good bit of flow through in that. Now, not a free-flowing part of the river, but a lot of flow-through volume in there, and we were able to really reduce their algae. They did actually position our system a little more sort of upstream, so that when it was growing the microbes and distributing them out, that they would sort of flow to the far end of the pond where the outlet was. But it really just depends on design. We can design on with a good bit of flow-through. There is a point, though, when a free-flowing river isn't going to make sense for us.
Correct. Great information. The last little piece is, we're battling in a lot of lakes, Eurasian milfoil, things like this. Does that also help with that issue? So
we have had some success at reducing the amount of milfoil. These are more anecdotal from our customers. We did a organic berry farm out in Washington State also, coincidentally. And they had tons of milfoil. It was their irrigation pond. They couldn't use chemicals because you can't use chemicals to irrigate an organic farm, nor would you want to any farm, really. So they had to be very careful how they treated this pond. And they said we thinned out. We even have a gentleman here who put it in his lakefront, who we were talking to earlier today, that said, my milfoil is far less prolific. Will it get rid of all milfoil? No, but we're taking away the environmental conditions that cause them to get out of control. But there's lots of varieties. There's all kinds of environmental conditions. So, but the key is you will never solve any of these problems, any of these algae, weed problems, unless you manage nutrients. Because you can kill something, but it's always going to go back if you don't change something else. And we are the guys that change that something else, which is reduce nutrient load on the bottom, but also in the water column. That's the key.
Again, outstanding. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I did not provide tissues for everybody, but I do want to wish a very sincere thanks, congratulations, retirement, and we're going to miss Steve Daunt as our policy advisor. Any comments?
No, I'm not the speech. It's in my contract.
We'll ask you January 3rd. You can come back. Let's see. Representative Vanderwall moves to excuse absent members. There being no objection, motion available by unanimous consent. Merry Christmas and see you all next year. There being no further business coming before the committee, committee will stand adjourned.